Welcome back to the Moonjuice Metal Horror Podcast, the podcast where we live and breathe the heavy metal and horror, but are not afraid to shit on both of them. Okay, yeah. So
just for our listeners, we had to re-record the intro again because Mike fucked it up, and it's like one of the easiest things to do when you start a podcast or start filming. It's usually like the first two things you say are complete fuck up.
Exactly.
Especially if you have ADHD like me and Mike do. Like your thoughts kind of overlap what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what fucking film are we doing today, Mike?
Today we're doing actually a horror classic that pretty much everybody knows. A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Woo!
Yep, the movie that started the entire franchise, what a lot of horror fans are into. Yeah.
The house that Freddy built, which is what the movie industry likes to call it anyway. Yeah. So
what?
I chose this one, right? Yeah, that's what they call it. They call it the house that Freddy built. So New Line Cinema is the house that Freddy built.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. This is actually what they say in the film industry. I chose this film because, so we did two films that were about werewolves, which is totally cool with me. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want the listeners thinking that we're only going to do werewolf films. Plus, I felt like this was a film that I seemed to have really enjoyed when I was younger. Like, I really liked this film. I don't remember thinking it was scary, but I remember thinking it was a good film and I liked it. And I was like, oh, I haven't seen that one since I was probably like 13 because I'm old as fuck, right? So I was like, it'll give me an opportunity to watch it again, and then we can also like go through it. I seem to remember liking this film a lot more when I was young.
Well, same goes for me. It was weird. The weirdest thing is, I first saw the movie when I was 8 with my grandma. No, but I barely remember it at all. No. Then I watched it again when I was like 16, 17. But because at that time I was living in Germany, I saw it in German. No, and I was never really a major fan of Freddy Krueger for that reason, because in 90% of the cases, German dubs suck. They always make a movie bad. Literally. And I actually liked it again because this time I watched it in English, because the German version is just, I don't know, German dubs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on who does it. I'm not really sure about like what happens to a film after it comes out and it's in English and the Germans have to dub it. If back then when horror films were coming out of the States, if they like really paid attention to who dubbed it, or if they even cared. Because I remember like I've seen all the Evil Dead movies dubbed, and if you watch the original Evil Dead movie, the dubbing is atrocious. And I think most of the American films that were dubbed into German, at least around this time and a little bit earlier, were terrible. Because I think they paid a studio just a little bit of money. Like, hey, to dub this film, we'll give you guys like $300 or whatever. So you've got a couple of fucking drunk college kids sitting around dubbing this film.
Yeah, well, likely. No, the thing is, even back then and today, it does not matter if it's movies, if it's TV shows, or it's video games. I can't think of one German dub that I think is good. Not one. Not one. I mean, compared to the English versions, I literally can't think of one where I would say, in my opinion, it's good. It's different if it's a German movie to begin with. No?
Yeah.
And I would say, fine. Okay. No? But I don't know. It just, I'm not a fan of it. Really, I'm not. That's why it also aggravates me, because very often, when you're on Prime, there are multiple movies that are pretty fucking cool. No? And then I start watching it, and I can only watch it in German. I'm like, fuck this shit. And
that's
even
the way
it's
Prime works over here?
What? Yeah, what? Yeah. There are multiple movies I don't know that I wanted to start watching it. No? But they say, like, no, I can only watch it in German. And like, I mean, why? This is a fucking American movie.
I know.
Why can I only watch it in German?
Well, what the funny thing about the dubbing is Germany's really the only country that does that shit. I think I think Spain does it, but not quite like the Germans do. The Germans are one of the only countries that actually watch something dubbed, right? Every other country like Norway, Denmark, it's the English version with subtitles, which is fun. And quite honestly, the German versions, it might be different for you, but the German versions for me, they're dubbed now so well that I really barely notice. It doesn't take me out of the film. But back in the day, when these films were first coming out in Germany and they were getting dubbed, they're terrible. Like, The Exorcist is unwatchable. The Exorcist is unwatchable. And that's a brilliant fucking film. The dubbing is terrible. Like, I made it 20 minutes in and I was like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. It's awful.
For me, it's just general. I don't know. I just really don't like German dubbing. Never have, and I probably never will. The only time I actually watched German movies was the last 15 years was when I had a girlfriend at that time, and they couldn't speak English very well. They didn't want to because they preferred to watch them in German. No? So yeah, of course. Then I said, yeah, okay. Then I'll watch it with my girl in German, so she's happy.
Right. Like I said, I don't have a problem with it. I would just rather watch the English version. I mean, like I think Army of Darkness is one of my favorite horror comedies of all time. And you watch that in the dub version and it loses anything that was funny about that movie is completely lost in translation. Like, terribly lost. Like, the movie is now no good. Like, no wonder nobody liked that film in Germany. Yeah. It wasn't funny at all.
Yeah. Now,
with this movie, I might have to go back and watch the German dubbing just to see how terrible it is, because this was 1984.
Yeah,
so it's
and now the fact that we've been mainly only talking about German dubbing, I mean, if you like this podcast, just follow us on Spotify or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get any further news or episodes from us. Okay, so then
I promise none of this will be German dubbed ever.
Never. I mean, if we might eventually make 1 or 2 German episodes, but probably, yeah,
we would have to do that for Stefan, because Stefan complains that he can't understand a word we're saying. Our drummer in our band, Stefan.
Yeah, I know. He can't. It's a typical goddamn thing where it's like, oh, you Americans, you don't the way you speak, nobody can understand. Fucking bullshit. Nope. Nobody that has ever talked to a British person, Scottish, Irish, Australian, or any other native English-speaking person can tell me that we really speak so badly. That's fucking bullshit.
We really don't, man. We really don't.
I mean, people that say that have, in my opinion, never talked to a British person.
My wife is German, and she always prefers American English over everything else. I hear a lot that we're very, like, heavily slang laden with our language, but that's not necessarily true, because you can hear these people from Scotland and England, and there's so much slang that half the time I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Scottish, I mean, I can understand them. I have no problem talking with British people, Scottish, Irish, or whatever. And it's kind of like, that's what I always kind of find ridiculous when it says, like, American English and British English and what. I mean, it's all fucking English, dumbasses. We're just pronouncing certain letters differently. That's it. I mean, because
it's
a lot of Germans,
just the Germans, though.
Yeah, just the Germans. Germans literally act like if American English and British English are entirely different languages.
I know. I hear that shit all the time. Okay. So, before we get started into the film, like, this is like a metal horror podcast, so I did want to, like, pull up some of the metal albums that came out around the exact same time that this film did, because, I mean,
yeah,
I want to know I want to know what came out and where the metal influences were in this film and what was popular at the time, and I want to do that with every horror film. But quite honestly, it didn't matter what came out during this film, because there's literally no metal influence in this film whatsoever.
No.
All the music is that god awful synthesizer that you hear in, like, early 80s horror films. Like,
actually, I like that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a nostalgic thing. It's a nostalgic thing that people like. I mean, or else they wouldn't be doing it in Stranger Things, right? it's a nostalgia thing.
Yeah.
I prefer like a soundtrack that's actually done with an orchestra or, music in the background.
Yeah.
But whatever. So the horror albums that were out at this time that came out, there was Iron Maiden, which I can't remember the name of the album right now. Hang on.
I think it's it's a Power Slave.
Power Slave.
That came out that year, yeah.
Didn't really care about that album. I was never a big Iron Maiden fan.
Yeah.
What is interesting, though, is this was the year of Ride the Lightning by Metallica. So probably, I know you're not like a huge Metallica fan.
No,
I am. I kind of grew up with Metallica. This to me was like, it's debatable for me if this is their best album, but I think Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets are kind of both metal masterpieces to me. I'm not sure which one I like better because they both kind of have a nostalgic quality for me, but Ride the Lightning came out at the exact same time as Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1. Right. No metal influences in the film. Again, none. Absolutely.
And what actually wasted an opportunity, because I think Nightmare on Elm Street is the perfect movie for metal.
No, it totally is. It totally is. But I don't think Wes Craven was into metal.
Yeah, I
mean, or else he would have definitely used something. But maybe he just wanted it. Like 80 synth was kind of all the mode right at that time in horror films.
Yeah,
so he just
of course,
cool.
that's all the time. But I like 80 synth. I think it's cool.
Depends on how you use it. There's some horror films where it's overused to the point that it just takes you right out of the film. I want to say The Thing, which again is a perfect film in my eyes. Like I love John Carpenter's The Thing, but there's some synth in there at certain times where I'm just like, tone down the synth a little bit, dude. Like the scene could have been much creepier with no music, but you had to throw in the synth and it kind of ruined the scene. But this whole film is just synth. So whatever. You got anything you want to like say about the movie before I start like running down production and budget and all that stuff?
No. The thing is, I'll wait pretty much until we got down the budget and everything because.
Okay.
The thing I have to say, you know me, man. I'm always kind of more the guy. I'm more into the in-universe lore and character stuff. No. That's why I'm more interested than all the real world stuff, So I mean, you're the one that's more interested in the real world.
It's interesting though, like, yeah. Oh, I mean, I figure since we're dismantling films, and it's always really interesting to me. Like I've said it in the last 2 episodes, like if you tear through this stuff, like budget and where the ideas came from, you can kind of see it more in the movie, and you appreciate the movie a little bit more, which is something I never did when I was younger. Like a horror movie came out, you went to go see it, or you popped in a VHS and you watched it. You didn't really care about the backstory. But going back now and looking at some of this stuff, you learn more about the movie itself and kind of what could have been in the film, what almost didn't make the cut, behind the scenes goofy shit that happened. Which behind the scenes goofy shit that happened, we are talking about Robert Englund.
Yeah.
I don't think Robert Englund, you can't really believe. I personally think you can't really believe anything that guy says. Because his story changes all the time.
Yeah, because
from film to film to film.
He's always shit
with
talking.
Freddy.
Every single interview. Yeah. That's what I love. That's what I've always loved Robert Englund. And he just is Freddy Krueger. But every single interview you see him, and he's shit talking every single time.
He's always talking. Like I'll give it to him this way. Like how some people when they tell a story. Like some older people, when they tell a story, they'll kind of inject things that are really not part of the story or don't make any sense, but they're doing it just to keep the audience interested. That's kind of what he does when he's talking about films. Like, so I watched this interview with him one time, and I want to say it was from like Nightmare on Elm Street. It might have been 2, but there's a scene where like a regular Labrador walks up and pisses on the ground. And when he pisses on the ground, the piss turns to fire and the ground opens up and Freddy comes out, right? Well, he was asked about that scene. I think somebody kind of caught him off guard and asked him about the scene. He's like, oh, yeah, the dog. Well, I think that was a hellhound. That was a hellhound. That's what that was. That's why he peed on the ground and it turned into fire. And yeah, Freddy came. There's no hint in the film that that's what that is. I think that was just something that he made up on the fly.
Probably.
You can't believe anything Robert Englund says. Let's just go ahead and throw that out there.
Yeah.
Which is why there's a few other things in here that are kind of like that, where I'm like, Robert, I don't know, man. I think you're making that up. So anyway, horror history. So the film was filmed on a modest budget, right? It became a massive box office hit, launching the careers of several actors, including Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, yeah.
So this was Johnny Depp's first film.
Yeah.
Ever.
Actually, I thought it was 21 Jump Street that launched his career.
No, I'm not sure. I might have to look it up and see if 21 Jump Street came after this or before it. I think it came after, because when this film was made and he was selected, he was a no-name. Like, it says that he walked in for casting and Wes Craven immediately, like, struck his name from the list. He was like, nah, so this part that you're applying for, this guy's supposed to be a very tall, blonde-haired jock, right? And so that was the part he was supposed to be playing. And so Wes Craven struck his name from the list, and then he went through the videos of the people that submitted for the role with his daughter, who was a teenage girl, and she was like, no, pick him. He's dreamy and cute. Oh my God, he's got to do the role. So Johnny Depp only got this role because Wes Craven's daughter thought he was cute. All right. So whatever. Anyway, Johnny Depp's first film. I do know that's true. I don't know if 21 Jump Street came after or not, but 21 Jump Street fucking sucked anyway, right?
No.
So the idea of Freddy Krueger, right? So this idea for Freddy Krueger was born from Wes Craven's own childhood. As a child, Craven once saw an old man walking outside his house late at night. The man stopped, looked directly at him through the window, and grinned in a way that could completely terrified him as a kid. And that unsettling encounter made him immediately think of this Freddy Krueger character. Also, the name of Freddy Krueger comes from a bully that used to bully Wes Craven in school when he was a kid. So the actual bully's name was Fred Krueger. And so when he came up with this character's idea, he was like, yeah, fuck Fred. He was like, fuck Fred, I'm naming this guy Freddy Krueger. That way, every time that bully sees the movie, he's going to be tortured the rest of his life. Like, dude, that is some awesome payback. That's great.
Yeah, awesome, because, the funny thing is, Freddy Krueger is actually a nickname because his real name, when he was still a normal human, was Fred Krueger.
Right. It was
that makes it even more funny, yeah.
Yeah, that was his actual name. Fred Krueger, yeah, just like the bully. Yeah, so Journey to Horror Fame. We want to talk about Wes Craven a little bit. Like, who is this guy for all you young, like really young people out there who have no fucking idea who this guy is? Filmography-wise, you may be able to go back and trace him back to a few movies. His first film was The Last House on the Left, which was a 1972 film. And if you've seen that one, extremely racy, extremely violent, not on par with this film. Like that film was truly fucked up.
Yeah.
I recommend going back and watching that one. It's a little bit of a dry watch at the beginning, but once it starts going, it's a great fucking film. He followed that up with The Hills Have Eyes, 1977, which a lot of the younger audience probably only remembers the new Hills Have Eyes, which was surprisingly a pretty good film. But
it was good.
It was good. Wes Craven did the original film. He came up with the idea, wrote the story, and produced the film. So, Hills Have Eyes. There's a couple of really good films on here, but I can sit here and name them and name drop for another hour. I'm not going to do that to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Wes Craven. He's a very, very horror director. There are so many movies he made.
Yeah, he's done a lot, but those are the two that really stuck out. I think the reason I have those two is those were his highest grossing films before Nightmare on Elm Street.
I mean, he's most known for Nightmare on Elm Street, of course. No.
I mean, it's still his highest producing franchise. So here comes that fucking stupid bullshit story from Robert Englund that I was talking about, right? So Freddy's signature fedora almost didn't make it into the film, right? So the character of Freddy has a fedora that he always wears, except for one part in the film, which is a continuity error, and I'll get to that later. So that fedora almost didn't make it into the film as part of the character.
Okay.
So Robert Englund was asked about this, right? They didn't go directly to Wes Craven. They asked Robert Englund. Robert Englund said, oh yeah, originally they didn't want me to wear a fedora in the film because they were worried everybody was going to confuse me with Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, Robert. Right. Because anybody would look at Freddy Krueger and immediately think Indiana Jones. Anyway, so they actually removed it. Well, Robert says that they removed the fedora from the Get Up, and then he argued that this is stupid. Nobody's going to think I'm Indiana Jones. Give me the fedora. So then he wore the fedora, but the fedora was like in post-production, almost didn't make it into the film. On-set shenanigans. So you've got like a couple of middle-aged people in this film, and then you've got a bunch of kids, right? And so Robert Englund is notorious for messing around on set and doing things that are, crazy just to keep everybody laughing.
Yeah.
Him and Johnny Depp were good friends. Like during the production, they were both starving because they had missed their food for that day for whatever reason. And so Robert was like, fuck it, let's go out in town and eat. And Johnny Depp was like, hey, you're still wearing all your shit. And Robert was like, don't care. So he's in the Freddy costume. He's in the Freddy costume, and Robert says that he picked the most darkly lit restaurant he possibly could, just to kind of like, yeah. So you couldn't really see that he was wearing all this crap on his face and the prosthetic and everything else, but he brought the glove with him. So anyway, they went to this restaurant that was darkly lit, and they went to a corner, and he says that kind of a neon blue light came on to kind of open up the lighting in the area. And when the waiter saw him, he scared the waiter so badly that the waiter dropped the food and ran back into the kitchen. Again, another Robert Englund story. Probably not true. Whatever.
Yeah. You would have to ask Johnny Depp about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anybody can get a hold of that guy and like keep him coherent enough to talk to him, then maybe we could ask him. Yeah. We're not going to go there.
Yeah. That's an entirely different thing.
Yeah. So this film for 1984 had a $1.8 million budget, which is pretty modest for that time.
Whoa, that's pretty bad. It's extremely. I would have thought it was more. Yeah,
pocket change. 1.8 million. After its first popularity in the box office, after the first few months of it being out, it made 57 million. So from 1.8 million to 57 million, like that was an immediate hit. Like at that point, they were already hitting this dude up for like the second movie. Definitely.
Yeah.
To this day, that franchise alone has made 720 million. The franchise.
Yeah.
That includes the tragic remake, unfortunately.
I actually didn't think it was bad. I liked the remake.
You liked the remake?
Yeah.
Oh God, it was fucking terrible. Oh man, what did you like about it?
What? I don't know. I like the movie pretty much. No, I don't. I mean, I don't know what's to dislike about it. Either than any other Freddy Krueger movie.
Well, I didn't think it was badly acted. Right? I mean, the acting was good. The acting was arguably better than this film.
Yeah,
by far.
Yeah.
But there is one key change there that they made, aside from his appearance. His appearance was a little bit different. But they actually made him a child molester in that film.
Yeah, okay, that thing, yeah. I mean, the thing was, because he was originally a child murderer, so...
Yeah, and that's just the thing. In all of these movies, they only talk about him murdering children, right? Freddy's always been a child murderer. In the remake, they made him a child molester who also murdered the children.
Yeah,
and so I felt like maybe that was kind of a betrayal of the character, like absolute betrayal of the character, and that pissed me off. And maybe that's why I don't like the film. But
actually, I don't. A lot of people say that, but I don't really fully understand. Child murderer, child molester, I mean, are both equally pieces of shit, in my opinion. So
yeah, well, right. But here's the thing. With horror, we praise murderers. We praise serial killers. Jason, Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface. All these guys are liked because of the insane cool ways that they kill people, right? But it makes it very hard to cheer for a guy who rapes children. That's my thing, right? That's just me. Like, I had a hard time with that. I was pretty pissed off. I think once they did that part in the movie, I shut it off. I was like, yeah, I don't need to see anymore. But whatever. That's it, dude. You got anything else you want to say before we rip into this fucking film?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. Yeah. So the film opens with
The blonde girl that's definitely going to die. Yeah.
well, first you get the typical boiler scene room, and I think they kind of redo this in a couple of films, but all you see is Freddy's hands, and he's making something, right?
Yeah.
The guy is obviously an asthmatic because he's heavily fucking breathing. Like the only thing you hear this guy doing
Breathing,
is breathing hard. It's almost like he's got a microphone right here while he's making stuff with his other hand.
Yeah, but the thing is that they probably only did that to make it sound creepy. Probably that's the only reason why you have that heavy breathing stuff, because it's totally ridiculous anyway, because Freddy Krueger is not alive. So the heavy breathing makes absolutely no fucking sense.
No, so here's the thing. This scene, if you notice, when you watch this scene, he's actually alive. So
this was before he got killed.
This is before he got killed. If you go back and watch, the hands that you see are not burned. They're just normal hands. And the sweater that he's wearing is also not tattered. So what you're seeing is the original alive Fred Krueger putting his glove together. So this is obviously before he got burned and became Freddy Krueger, right?
Yeah.
By the way, have you ever seen anyone put together something like that glove that fast? I mean, literally puts the thing together in like 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah.
30 seconds.
Oh, think about around, I don't know, multiple hours probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long it would take. I don't know much about
I mean, it's probably just an editing thing. They
hours,
cut it down, but at the same time, it looks like, it looks like he's just putting the glove together so fucking quick. And I was thinking, with those kind of skills, he should probably not have been a child murderer. He probably should have been like a prop maker or something, because dude would have been making fucking bank.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so we get that opening scene, and of course that screen is really small. So you get this cool like letterbox thing that's really small, and then the film opens up, which I'm not sure any other film's done that. I kind of wanted to research that, but it was a cool effect.
Yeah.
So this is the part with the girl that you're talking about.
Yeah. The blonde girl I don't remember her name. It's just the blonde girl that's definitely going to die.
I mean, I'm going to call her Blondie because I forgot her name already too. And in my notes, I've just got Blondie.
I know, because the thing is, instantly, I mean, literally, this is like, even, not when I was a kid, because as a kid, you don't really fully understand that. But when I saw this movie the first time when I was like 16, 17, I saw that and I instantly said, she's going to die. And that. Literally in this scene, I don't know what's going to happen, but she's going to die.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. Like, it opens up to her walking down this, like, cinder block kind of alleyway thing. I don't know if you can call it an alleyway because it's got, like, a roof, but it's cinder blocks, and there's water on the floor, and it's really dimly lit. Yeah. And she's wearing a nightgown, and she's walking scared to death through this thing. And if you didn't know it was a Freddy film, you didn't really need to, because it's obvious she's going to die. Like you said, like she's dead. She's dead as fuck.
That's the thing. That is something so much horror movies do. Like, literally, it opens up. You see a person, that dumbass is going to die.
Yeah, in typical movie fashion, we're going to open up with the person who's going to die first.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a trope. That's definitely a fucking trope. So did you get the part with the sheep?
Sheep? No.
Yes. So she's walking down this kind of cinder block corridor, and there's nothing there. Like, all you see is the end of the hallway. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a sheep runs across and then runs away. And she's like,
yeah.
I was like, huh? What? Why?
Because apparently sheeps are scary.
Sheep are scary. That's a choice that was made. I wonder what kind of effect that had at the time, or maybe there's something we're missing. But that scene was set up to be scary for some reason. But I just kind of laughed out loud.
Jump scare. It was set up to be a jump scare, pretty much.
Yeah, but it's the fucking sheep. Like, come on, like Wes. What do you think? Wes was high. Wes was high. I'm telling you right now, Wes was high when he came up with the sheep. So she goes from there into a boiler room, which is kind of Freddy's signature place, right? Yeah. comes up in every film. Freddy's in a boiler room. So if you're in the boiler room, you already know you're around Freddy Krueger. And I noticed in the scene, and I don't know if you caught it, but there's babies crying the whole time.
Yes,
You notice that?
Yeah.
Kind of a cool effect. Not really sure what it means, but kind of a cool effect. So she goes kind of into the boiler room area, and Freddy kind of sort of jumps out at her. You don't really see what he looks like.
Yeah.
You don't really know who it is. Something jumps at her and she wakes up, right? She's in her bed and she screams. Mom comes running in her nightgown, right? And she's like, baby, what's wrong? She's like, I don't know. It's just a dream. And Mom looks at her nightgown and it's got like 4 scrapes across it, like cuts from his razor glove, but not on her skin, just on the nightgown. And she's like, baby, either you gotta cut your fingernails or quit having those kind of dreams, right? Yeah, I mean, now, come on, dude. The writing here is something else. So, by the way, Mom has come in to check on her daughter.
Yeah.
The boyfriend or husband of the mom comes in. He doesn't wait like 2 seconds after Mom's walked in and said that. He comes in and he's like, hey, baby, you gonna come back to bed and get some of this or what? Like, fucking hold your horses, Turbo. My fucking daughter just had a terrible nightmare and screamed bloody murder. You didn't give me 2 seconds. The fuck?
Yeah, that's a little bit, I know. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
So yeah, after this we get the nursery rhyme, like the first time that we hear the nursery rhyme, and it's the typical girls that you always see in every Freddy film, the little girls jumping rope and
1, 2, Freddy comes for you. 3, 4,
3, 4, but lock your door, so on and so on. So this is not a dream. This is just normal out on the street, normal day. And we get that nursery rhyme. That's the first thing we see. Johnny Depp drives up in his Cadillac, which is way too fucking expensive for a fucking 16-year-old kid to have.
15-year-old? Yeah, like, yeah.
Like, dude's got dad's money, definitely. Like dad is just, hey, kid, you stay the fuck out of my way. Take this car and get out of my sight. Like, this car is fucking nice. The class.
Yeah, the thing is, probably that applies to pretty much everybody living in this fucking neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at the houses, they all have money. I mean, they're all, there's nobody in this movie that fucking poor fucking.
No, it's a white, rich neighborhood. And on that note, there's not one black person in this film.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because maybe it's where I grew up. I don't know, but like we're fairly mixed. But in all of the high school scenes, even in the classroom, everywhere there's no black people. I was like, that would have never happened today. Like we would have not let that happen. So basically, this is an all white town. Take from that what you will.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
So Blondie is walking down the street with Nancy and her boyfriend Johnny Depp, and they're
Johnny
talking.
Depp.
Yeah, and she's explaining that she had a nightmare the night before, and that she woke up screaming. And immediately, this fucking walking hard-on named Rod, walks up. Rod, right?
Rod, yeah.
Who, by the way, this guy is. I'm pretty sure this is the 80s, right? Pretty sure this is the 80s. But this guy is dressed like and talks exactly like a greaser from the 1950s. Hair and all. Like, tight white t-shirt, black leather jacket, grease, black hair.
Just like all his behavior. It's just one of the guys, even who were back in high school, the guy that, like, you know, acted like, you know, that was this, oh, I'm the cool guy, you know, and I get on the kicks or whatever. Probably does, but it's the typical guy you exactly know. He's just going to fuck those girls, and then he's just going to throw them away. And then those girls are going to be complaining about, oh, guys are pig assholes. And then it's like, yeah, no fucking wonder you only choose assholes like that. No, but I feel like you can say the same thing around for the most guys, you know?
Yeah.
It's just one thing.
Well, like to enforce the stereotype even further, like he's walking behind them, right? They don't know he's there yet. And she's talking about, oh, I woke up and had this horrible nightmare, woke up screaming. He's immediately walking up behind them, and the first thing he says is, yo, I woke up with a hard on this morning and it had your name on it. Like, okay, yeah. Like we're just gonna reinforce the stereotype here immediately with this guy. He's a walking hard on. He's probably gonna die too.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's always the jerk like that who gets murdered horribly in some way in these films, right? So he says that to these girls. The blonde girl, insults him back. She insults him back, like makes fun of him in some way. I can't remember exactly what it was. And then he kind of stops while they're still walking. What does he say? Up yours with a twirling lawnmower. Like, in what society does anybody say anything like that? Like, I grew up in the 80s, dude. If anybody had said that, would have been like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? Up yours with a twirling lawnmower? Fuck did you come up with that shit? What a fucking idiot. Anyway, okay. So, Johnny Depp looks like he's 12 years old. There's a note that I have in here, by the way.
Well, I would say that.
Dude, he looks like he's 12 years old. He doesn't look old enough to be driving a car.
I mean, sorry, 12 years old. I mean, how do you come up with? I mean, that he looks like a teenager, like a young guy, okay, but 12 years old. I mean, you pretty much know what a 12-year-old looks like.
He looks like a fucking 12-year-old,
Not
man.
like that. I mean,
maybe it's because I'm used to seeing him now.
Yeah.
But to look at him like that, I'm like, dude, that kid cannot be 16 years old. He's not old enough to drive a car. First thing I thought when he drove up in the car is that kid is not old enough to be driving a car.
That's what literally every single fucking 15, 16-year-old looks like.
Really? I didn't look like that.
Did you look like that? I'm going to call that out to be fucking bullshit, you know?
I'll have to show you a picture of me.
I was 15, 16. I had a full beard. I
did. I had a full beard at 16. No lie. I will show you pictures.
Maybe. But the thing is, that does not go for the most guys. The most guys don't have like a full beard at 15, 16. Okay. And you can tell me, I mean, he just looks like a typical 15-year-old.
Yeah. So next scene we get is inside of a house, and it's Nancy, Blondie, and Johnny Depp. And Johnny Depp's on a phone, I think, talking to his mom. He's like telling her that he's telling her he's somewhere else other than where he is, right?
Yeah, because the Blondie wanted Nancy and Johnny Depp to spend the night at her house because she's afraid of nightmares or whatever.
Right.
So they decided to come over, and so she wouldn't have to be alone.
Okay. See, I had forgotten that part. I wasn't there.
Which turns out to be totally pointless because douchebag comes over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she wanted them there because they knew douchebag was going to come over. That's possible too.
Oh no, they specifically say before in the scene when they were talking, Blondie asks Nancy, tells her about her bad dreams or whatever, and he could spend the night so she doesn't have to be alone. Literally. So Nancy and Johnny Depp being there has literally nothing to do with the fact that douchebag was going to come. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're sitting together and then they hear something outside the garden and then they go out. And then douchebag jump scares them. You know, it's actually Johnny Depp because the two girls are sitting there like, oh, I heard something there, whatever. Then Johnny Depp walks over there and then douchebag, kind of jumps out Johnny Depp and you have like a little jump scare thing. And then everybody's, oh, you jerk, blah, blah, blah. Something like that. And they all go back into the house. That's how far I remember.
Well, when he does this too, like he has like a garden tool that's made out of metal, and he's like,
exactly.
He's acting like he's scraping it down metal and making kind of the sound that makes, like,
yeah.
And he was like, yeah, pretty scary, huh? Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, wait a minute, how does this guy know that that's what they're scared of? How does he know that that's what happens in the dreams? And this immediately made me think, okay. Maybe it's not explained. It is explained later, but at the time I was like, is he having the same dreams as these kids? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because they all start having the same dreams.
Yeah. Which you see that a little bit later. So Ron and Blondie go upstairs because it's boom boom time, right?
Yeah, they start banging. Yeah.
They're banging unusually loud. Like,
unusual.
This chick is screaming bloody murder, dude. Like it's loud. It's really fucking loud. And there's all sorts of banging on the walls and stuff. And Johnny Depp's in the other room, kind of like covering his ears. He's like, oh my God, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And then if I'm not mistaken, she falls asleep. I'm not missing anything in between there, right?
Nah, they were banging, then they're done, and then they shortly say something about the dreams or whatever, and he says, yeah, I've been having bad dreams too, and blah, blah, blah. Something about the dreams, and then they both fall asleep, him and her. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have like...
And this is where we get... Go ahead.
Yeah, this is where it basically starts out, have Blondie, first walking a little bit to the house, and then she walks out into the garden. And then she hears some kind of noise, turns around, and then you see a figure with a feather stay back. It's obviously Freddy Krueger.
And it's Gumby Freddy.
Where he pulls out both of his arms like they're like Mr. Fantastic, where they go from one side to the other.
Right.
Yeah, and then he...
Unusually silly,
yeah. And then they turn around and says, oh my God, or whatever, and then Freddy Krueger says, no, God, there's me, or something. I don't remember.
He pulls up his glove to his face and he says, no, this is God.
No, yeah, this is God. And then she starts running, and it's just like, she starts running, like out of fear. And the way Freddy is running behind her, it's like...
It's janky as fuck. Like, I was trying to think if anybody would be scared by this running in this film. Like,
no. I think nobody would be scared by it. However, she runs. She goes through some door, and she's in the boiler room, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Then she starts walking through the boiler room, and at this point, she's walking from A to B, and then she comes towards a dead end, and then it's like, okay, what now? Blah blah blah, and then Freddy, jumps her from behind. And then it jumps back to the bedroom, because she starts screaming bloody murder, whatever. And then you have Ron douchebag just gets up and is totally scared. Oh my God, what the fuck is happening? And is literally just standing there looking at her, doing absolutely nothing. I mean, usually, even if it was a girl you just had an affair with or one night stand, and she would be like that, you were like, hey, try to wake her up. What's wrong? Because it was obviously she's having a bad dream. Here, wake up, just try to wake up. But no, he just immediately, gets totally fucking freaked out because his girlfriend is having a nightmare and runs to the other fucking side of the room. I mean, there's a lot of reactions you can have to that, but your girlfriend's having a nightmare and you're totally fucking freaked out. I mean, like, hey.
Yeah, it didn't make much sense to me either. I kind of felt like this might have been like an editing mistake or something, because this should have been something that was caught in post-production, because she does start having the nightmare and screaming.
Yeah,
he immediately gets up and runs to the other side of the room and just stares at her. Like, doesn't try to wake her up or anything.
Did you have then she starts flying up in the room?
See,
you have
then it would have made sense for him to get up and back up and start screaming as well.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty fucking freaky. Like, this kill, and just in general, the way that this scene is filmed is really well done. Like, even for the time, like 84.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it without us seeing the cables or anything that lifted her up. But she does this weird thing, like out of the bed, she's like twirling into the air and then slowly ends up on the wall to the left, right?
Yeah, because it's obviously that Freddy's dragging her up into the wall, up into the ceiling. And you already see where she's fine with the air, where he already, you see like the blood marks because he scratches her over the torso. The drags her up the wall, onto the ceiling, and she's screaming bloody murder, and Ron is
blood
on the other
everywhere.
Room screaming
blood
her
everywhere.
name, whatever it is, don't care. Yeah, blood everywhere. Exactly. And then she just, falls down onto the bed and is dead. No? And then Nancy and Johnny Depp come running in, and for some reason, douchebag just decides to jump out of the window. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, it's like, oh my God, my girlfriend's being killed. What am I going to do? I'm going to jump out the window. That's definitely something a person would do. I mean,
that is definitely what you would want to do if you wanted to get framed for the murder.
Yeah, exactly. You jump out of the fucking window.
If you wanted to get in trouble, you would jump out the window and run away instead of staying there, right?
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, okay, I could maybe make the case that this was a horrific death, because it was a horrific death.
Yeah.
Not only is there blood everywhere. Like when she falls back down from the ceiling after being murdered, the bed is just completely soaked in red. Like I'm not sure there's any white left on this bed. It's just red. There's blood everywhere. This girl levitated out of the bed, ended up on the wall, got dragged across the ceiling, and then dropped back on the bed. I'd be pretty freaked out, but I don't think I'd jump out the window.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. That'd be running out, freaked. Yeah, of course. Everybody would be like totally freaked out, like, what the fuck is going on now? But for no reason whatsoever, to just jump out of the fucking window.
Yeah, like a fucking.
It's like, yeah, and of course, everybody accuses him. Duh. I mean,
there's one part that we kind of forgot.
Johnny
there's one part that we kind of forgot that I wanted to talk about. Sorry, we got a little bit of lag. So there's a scene right before her death where Nancy is downstairs and she's in her bed and she noticed the crucifix that's on the wall behind her falls off. It almost brains her in the bed, but she's like, oh, that's not weird. You know, whatever. She takes the crucifix back out and sticks it under her pillow. But we get this cool scene where Freddy's kind of coming through the wall above her, right?
Above Nancy, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really well done. I think it's probably just latex or whatever is how they did the effect. But it's really fucking cool. The lighting is done really well. It's done really well. The scene's creepy as fuck. She wakes up because she notices something's happening and puts the crucifix back on the wall, which stops Freddy from coming through the wall. But here's the thing. You never see this crucifix thing in any other movie, but it is part of the rhyme. Like 5, 6, get your crucifix, right? So the crucifix in the scene is used to keep Freddy away because when she puts it on the wall, he goes away. And this is never revisited. And I wonder why, because in none of the other Freddy movies is there anything about a crucifix. Nobody uses a crucifix to keep this guy away, whatever. But it's part of the rhyme and it's in this movie, but it was never used again. Right?
Yeah.
So let's see, where are we? So at this point, Nancy and I think her boyfriend go to the police station, right?
Yeah.
Because they were there, right? They got called into the police station. They got taken with whatever. At this point, we find out Nancy's dad is actually the chief of police.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this guy is one of the worst fathers ever. This guy is literally one of the worst fathers ever because he's not concerned in the slightest about the fact that his daughter just witnessed her friend being brutally murdered. Not worried about the trauma there at all. Like, the only thing he's concerned about is like, well, what I really want to know is what were you doing hanging out with that miscreant over at that house in the first place? Like,
yeah. I mean,
dude,
the typical
this is something that can be talked about later. This is not a right now kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. Police chief's daughter, Nancy, says she was over at the house because Tina didn't want to sleep alone after the nightmares. I think the next thing we get is Nancy's in school, right? This is the next day? No. Okay, got it. She's
Not
walking to school, right? She decides to go to school the next day. Her mom stops her and says, hey, what are you doing after last night? You don't need to be going to school. She's like, no, I need to go to school anyway. So she leaves and goes to school. Come to find out, her dad, the police chief, is using her as bait to catch Ron. Because Ron stops her, yanks her into the bushes. Like, this is also not a move you want to make if there's a manhunt out for you, right? So he doesn't be like, hey, come here, I need to talk to you. No, he like grabs her from behind like this and drags her into the bushes while she's screaming. And then she's like, did you do it? He's like, no, I didn't do it. I didn't touch her, blah, blah, blah. And then he calls her a fruitcake. Yeah. He's like, you're a fruitcake. And then you get her dad shows up behind him with a weapon pointed to the back of his head and says, hold it right there. Yeah. They chase him down and put him in the cop car, and then Nancy goes to school, right? So Nancy's in class right now. I think they're having the students recite poetry or something. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Which is boring as fuck, right? I used to hate to have to do that in high school, like when they would make you stand up in front of the class and read shit. Yeah. So he's reading and Nancy's falling asleep, obviously, because it is boring as fuck. Nancy, I think she hears something. Somebody calls her name. You hear Nancy. She turns around and looks into the doorway and sees her friend that just got murdered in a body bag, like standing. Yeah. She's like standing there and she's in a body bag and she's covered in blood and all this stuff. Nancy gets up and kind of walks out into the hallway. But as she's doing this, the kid that's up in front of the class that's reading, this is kind of a cool effect, and that's why I bring it up. He's reading this poetry, but his voice changes to this eerie kind of dark voice, and he's slowly reading the poetry as she's walking out into the hallway. Do you notice anything about this scene that stuck out as a little odd?
Either than the dark voice, no, not necessarily. You mean you mean anything beyond, her dead friend talking to her? No,
Well,
no.
for a
Have I
horror
noticed
movie-
anything odd about this scene?
No, I meant about the effects that are going on at the same time, because she steps out in the hallway and sees her friend in the body bag laying on the ground. Her friend's leg gets lifted up by an unforeseen force and dragged out of the scene, right? But the blood,
Yeah, that of course, yeah.
the blood that's on the ground, the blood trail leading from where she was standing in the body bag down the hallway to where she gets dragged away, is bright green. It's not red blood.
Like Freddy's blood.
Freddy's blood's red, isn't it? Or is it green? It's green.
Yeah, because did you forget specifically, you see the one scene where where he cuts off his finger and you have like the sting squirting out. No? It's definitely not red, it's more greenish. No? Later on, to see with Nancy, you see that also scene where Freddy slices himself and you see maggots and some green slime coming out.
Okay. So we're gonna say that this is Freddy's blood then.
Yeah.
I guess. Because I was thinking so Evil Dead 2 was made after this film, right? So Evil Dead 2 came out immediately after this film. And there's a whole sequence in that movie where the blood turns green, and there's only green blood used throughout this entire scene. And I thought that might be a callback to this. I wasn't sure, but I just thought it was odd that all the blood leading down the stairs all the way to where she finds her friend in the body bag is all green. And I just, it was a choice and I don't know why. And I wanted to look it up. I wasn't sure about it. So Nancy follows the trail from where the body bag goes downstairs and ends up in a boiler room. Obviously,
Now, before,
kind of expected
isn't
that
this
at
the
this
scene where
point.
she clashes together with the one girl asking her for her hallway pass?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, because
I forgot about that.
she clashes together with this one girl, but she says, "Where's your hallway pass?" And then Nancy's basically what any other sane person is like, "Oh, fuck yourself." That's not what she said, but more or less.
Well,
And then she runs around. She sees her right through the hallway towards where her dead girlfriend was, dragged off to. And then all of a sudden, the girl says something behind, "Hey, Nancy, stop!" No. And then you obviously see the Freddy claws. So obviously this girl is just a Freddy Krueger. So obviously Nancy is asleep now.
yeah. It's a dead giveaway, too, because she's also wearing the Freddy sweater.
Exactly. And that's also a thing that I'm not necessarily sure if the green blood means much because it's a dream. What entirely in a lot of scenes makes Nightmare on Elm Street pretty weird and hard to talk about canon stuff because a very large portion of the things happens in dreams. Yeah, however, then there comes a scene where she follows one friend and comes into the boiler room. No?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then,
So,
I don't remember how it continues. She walks through the boiler room and then gets jumped by Freddy. And because he apparently starts slashing at her or whatever, she starts screaming bloody murder. Is in the middle of the classroom, and everybody's like just screaming, and everybody's going, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" No, and actually, that there's no white person in this movie.
This is also in the boiler room.
Yeah,
in the boiler room. This is also the first time we see Freddy Krueger in a light, to where you can actually kind of see what he looks like. The previous scene where he's outside and he's chasing Blondie, it's kind of shadowy. You don't really see everything about him, but I noticed that in this scene, compared to every other Nightmare on Elm Street movie, he looks wet and gross and slimy. This, in my opinion, was the way he was supposed to look. He looks nasty. There's even pieces of skin hanging off of his neck. And he looks disgusting. Like everything about him looks wet and disgusting. And you never see him look like this in any film afterwards. I just felt like this was the best way that they ever did Freddy. And they probably should have kept it that way because he looked silly in the other films. So yeah, so like you said, Nancy freaks out screaming in class and basically leaves the classroom, goes outside and walks home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when she gets home, Nancy screams at her mom and is obviously a little bit frantic. Her mom asks what's wrong, and she doesn't tell her mom. And this irritates the crap out of me throughout the film. Nobody is telling their parents what's going on. And maybe it's a fear of like being, I don't know, maybe people will think they're crazy or whatever, but none of the kids that are having these dreams are telling their parents about it. All right.
Well,
Nancy goes into the bathroom cabinet because she knows she doesn't want to sleep. She's already figured out at this point, okay, if I go to sleep, this guy's going to fuck me up, right? So she goes into the medicine cabinet and pulls out this bottle that's like the most, I don't know, like hastily made bottle of keep you awake pills. Like it says fast acting pills. Awake. Yeah, fast acting awake pills. And she pops a couple of those. And then I think she goes into her room. And this is kind of one of those movie trivia things that I like, right? So you're having nightmares. You're trying to stay awake. What should you probably not do?
Go to bed.
Well, you wouldn't want to be watching horror films. Maybe.
What?
You probably wouldn't want to be watching horror films because she's trying to stay awake in her bed and she's watching Evil Dead.
Yeah.
She's watching Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because this film calls Evil Dead a few times, but this is like the obvious time, like, because she's watching it. And in Evil Dead 2, you get the Freddy's glove in a few scenes hanging on walls in the Evil Dead 2. These films are a little bit related. But yeah, so she's watching Evil Dead and let's see. I think we might be on the same night, right? But she calls Johnny Depp over to come stay in the room.
Hey, she comes over she calls him to hang out, and he comes over so that he should just watch over her in case anything weird happens, so he can basically wake her up.
Right.
Exactly. Then Johnny Depp comes over and, sits in a chair beside her bed, and she falls asleep, and then starts walking around. And then at one point when she's walking through the street, she calls out to Johnny Depp, "Hey, are you still watching me?" And he comes out from the tree like, "Yeah, of course," and then just instantly disappears back. That was the first thing.
I was so confused by that.
Oh, it's a dream, so not actually.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a few things that make you think that it might not be a dream, this sequence. One, because she does that. Like, she's like, "Hey, are you still watching?" And he just kind of pokes out from behind a tree. He's like, "Yeah, so what?" And then goes back behind the tree. I'm like, is she dreaming or is she not dreaming? What's going on here?
She's obviously dreaming that because that is something that literally happens in a dream. At that point, I mean, it's obviously that is a dream. To me, that was specifically what told me, okay, she's dreaming now, because either in her dreaming, that makes no sense whatsoever. So it's obviously at this point, sooner or later, Freddy's going to pop up.
Yeah. So while she's walking, she goes across, it seems like it's across the street. I don't know, but she goes to the police station, right?
Yeah.
And I think the police station is in close vicinity to her house, which makes sense, whatever. And she goes kind of to the basement window and looks down into the cell where Ron is being held, right? And we get a scene of Freddy. Yeah, we get a scene of Freddy where he pulls a T-1000 move and walks through the
Yeah.
So, I like that because this is the 80s, right? So special effects are not really where they should be. So it's kind of hastily done, but he kind of walks through the bars. And I was like, this is probably where they got the idea from in T2, where the T-1000 walks through the bars. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
He sees Freddy messing with Ron, and I think she starts screaming but can't get anyone's attention. So she runs back to her house, I think. I think that's what happens.
No, actually, she. Okay, this is a bit more confused. Because now that she starts running back towards her house, no, and then she's at this one,
And Freddy chases her, right?
A jump by Freddy, and Freddy chases her, and Freddy chases her back to her house, and then she's in her bedroom, wrestling with Freddy.
After the marshmallow stairs.
After the march upstairs, and then she wakes up, no, and she instantly wakes up, and her screaming automatically wakes Johnny Depp up, no. And then there comes a scene where she's like, well, this is probably something every straight guy can relate to. No? She's like, oh, you asshole, what did you do? I just told you to watch me, blah, blah, blah. And Johnny Depp sitting there, like, the only thing he did was he fell asleep, and he's like, what the fuck did I do wrong? I mean, literally, every guy that's been in a relationship, there was this situation where you have your girlfriend is just fucking pissed at you, and is, I don't know, like, what did you do, blah, blah, and you're sitting there, and you have no fucking idea what you did. No? That is literally the look on his face in this scene. Yeah?
Well, he did do what he was not supposed to do, though. I will say that. But she fucking lets him have it hard. Like, she calls her, "Are you shitty boyfriend, you fucking idiot," blah, blah, blah. And then, because of her screaming, her mom knocks on the door, and then she immediately, like, makes him go out of the window so that mom doesn't see him, right? So he was just insulted, and now he's got to hang out on the roof. So I think, again, she doesn't tell her mom what's going on. Her mom asks, "Hey, what's going on? What's with these nightmares? What's going on?" She doesn't tell her mom anything. Nothing. Again, irritates the crap out of me because, you know, maybe this story could have come to fruition a little bit sooner had she told her mom what was going on. So at this point, Nancy takes Johnny Depp and heads back to the police station.
Yeah, because she's worried about Ron. Yeah, something's going to happen to him, yeah.
And so they're heading back, and I don't think she looks back through the window leading down into the basement where he is. I think they just run into the police station, and she's like, "Hey, I need to see Ron again. I need to see him now." And the guy that's behind the desk is like, "Look, lady, I took the night shift so that I could get some peace and quiet. You kind of ruining that." She's like, "No, I need to see Ron right now." Yeah. So her dad is also there, and normally he doesn't take the night shift, and he's like, yeah, this is bullshit. What are you doing here again? She's like, "Dad, please go downstairs and look at Ron. You're going to have to trust me on this," right?
Yeah, so the dad is like, yeah, okay, go down, look at him just so that his daughter, you know. The thing is, that was the thing that kind of redeemed the dad, because in that situation, like, yeah, she's having like kind of trauma. Let's just go out and check her out so she'll be, how should I say, so his daughter will feel fine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
they go down there. In the time that it takes them to get from upstairs to downstairs, Ron is asleep. And you see an invisible force kind of grab the covers, the sheets that he's laying on, and slowly wrap it around his neck. And then jerk him up out of the bed, right? And so he's awake, or sleeping, awake, whatever. And the sheet drags him across the cell, and then the sheet ties itself to the top of the bars and hangs him.
Yeah.
But this scene takes 1 second. So he is literally hanging there by his neck for 1 second. 1 second. Before the cops get the bars out.
Yeah, well, the thing is, now this scene, for multiple reasons, does not make sense. Now, one, as you say, how fast he dies is fucking ridiculous. Second thing, he wakes up before Freddy hangs him up, and that's the point. Freddy can only harm you when you're asleep. I mean, the thing is, at the moment he woke up, that should have instantly stopped.
Right.
That also,
and it didn't.
Yeah, that's the part that's like makes no fucking sense, because the entire thing is Freddy Krueger is this, you know, ghost that has now become a demon because he got caught in the dream reality when he died. You have like the 3 dream demons is what they were called. They blended with him, that giving him his powers or whatever. So he can only affect a person or the real world when you're asleep. And that's like that was also the point we rewatched it a few days ago, where I was like, this makes no fucking sense.
No, it doesn't. Well, there's a couple of continuity mistakes in this film. That's one of them, is that they can't decide with the kills if you're awake and that's it, which Nancy does that multiple times. She wakes up and everything ends, right? This guy is literally dragged out of his bed wide awake and hung. So this kills the continuity in the film for me completely, this part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not like, are we supposed to believe maybe he was asleep that whole time? You know, but we were seeing him awake because it was in the dream world or what? I don't know, but it didn't make any sense. And the fact that he died after 1 second of hanging makes no sense either.
Yeah. It does. The thing is, with the thing that confuses a lot of people with Nightmare on Elm Street is the fact that a lot of things happen in dreams. What kind of confuses a lot of people, and it's understandable, no? But this scene, it's very clear that he's awake. You know, because you see the thing strangling over his neck and then strangling him, no? And he's already awake before that happens.
Yeah.
And does not do anything, you know? And,
right.
And then with the people coming in, he's in the same position he was as in the dream or whatever. And throughout all of the other Nightmare on Elm Street movies, that's not the case. Yeah, because whenever something happens towards Freddy, the person is either in an entirely different room where they wake up, or in a different position. And he is like literally in the same position all the time, what clearly means he's awake.
Yeah.
And he's not dreaming anymore, no?
Yeah.
Because you always, also in every scene where Freddy appears, you have like stuff like the thing with Nancy and Johnny Depp, no? Where something happens that is so far off reality, it can only be a dream. For example, with Nancy going back and like, hey, are you still there? And he pops out of the tree and going, yeah, I'm here. That is so far off reality. It can only be a dream. Where it's obvious. But this is just like, this is just a total fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It breaks lore of the movie. It definitely does. And it makes the viewer like wonder, okay, the rules that were established, are these really rules or can they be broken? And you don't know. And the problem with that is, I know we're talking about this film, but that extends throughout every Nightmare on Elm Street film. That the person can wake up and he still doesn't stop. Whereas others wake up and he immediately stops. So I don't know, like continuity error, or maybe they were just being lazy or what. But yeah, that kill was bullshit. Yeah, because of that for me. So the next scene we get is Ron's funeral, right? There's a lot of people in these movies that do things that are kind of out of character for what they are, like the police chief bitching at his daughter after she just witnessed a horrendous murder instead of like shooting her. This priest is like standing reading out of the Bible for this guy's funeral, and he's like, but everybody remember, the reason he died is because he lived by the sword. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Yeah, I'm like, whoa.
I remember one thing, Matt, to defend the dad. No, he didn't bitch at the girl. He bitched at her mother.
Oh, he bitched at her too. You got to go back and watch. He was bitching at her too. Yeah.
Okay.
But this scene, the priest is like a little bit out of line. Like, I'm not sure this would be said at a funeral. I feel like this is a little bit too heavy after a young teenage boy died either by suicide, hanging himself in the cell, which is what everybody thinks. It would be a very sad time. So you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That doesn't make, one, it's too heavy. Two, it doesn't make any sense to how he died. So another stupid mistake.
No, not at all.
That makes no sense whatsoever. So at this point, right after the funeral, Nancy tells her dad finally about the nightmares that she's been having and who this, she doesn't know Freddy's name yet, but she knows what he looks like and that he's burned and that he's got a glove that's got razors on it and all this stuff. Her dad doesn't say anything. He just has this perplexed look on his face, like he knows something, but he's not saying it. Right. And mom is like, I'm going to go get her some help.
Yeah.
So the mom takes her to a sleep clinic to analyze like sleep, to figure out why she's not sleeping. And they the next scene is in the hospital. They've got her kind of in the bed, taped up with, wires and everything that you would expect for like a sleep test. The mom goes back with the doctor and sits in the other room behind glass so that they can kind of analyze her sleep patterns. The mom immediately lights up a cigarette in the hospital, totally 80s, and is smoking. And the doctor tells her, okay, so normal sleep patterns for someone having a nightmare is -5 or +5 on the scale that they're looking at.
Yeah.
So Nancy goes into REM sleep, and automatically it goes from +5 to 20, right? So that's so high of a reading that the doctor is like, okay, something's wrong with the machine. I need to figure out what's going on. Somebody needs to wake her up. Something's wrong. I think the mom runs in and wakes her up. And when she wakes her up, Nancy hands her the fedora.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which this is where it's established that, at least for the viewer and for everybody else, that if you can take a piece of his clothing back with you, then you should technically be able to bring him back with you as well. Right? And so this is where she gets it in her head, okay, I know how to stop this guy. Right? So she gives her mom the fedora, and then the next scene, they're back home. Right? Mom's already fucking getting drunk because mom's a fucking wreck. I would love to know how many bottles of Malibu rum this woman goes through in a day.
Yeah.
Because I think Nancy even remarks about like her drinking and how bad it is and how much she drinks. So mom's just sitting there chugging this bottle of Malibu rum, right? Like it's going out of style. And Nancy's going in on her. She's like, Mom, who is this guy? You're not telling me the whole story. I have the guy's hat, and I also noticed his name is written in the hat.
Yeah.
It says,
Yeah, because she says Fred Krueger. This is the time where multiple times, where Nancy said, yeah, this Fred Krueger is after me, blah, blah, blah. The mom says, like, no, it can't be him. It can't be Fred Krueger. That's bullshit or whatever. But the mom never explains to her why. She just says, no, it's bullshit. Everything's okay. Just go back to sleep. And the mom acts, like something's wrong with Nancy. What also is like the mom is a fucking terrible mother, because it's like, obviously her daughter can't sleep for what reason, But the mom literally does nothing to help her and just says, go to bed, dumbass.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, right? So as a parent, if you knew that your daughter brought back a fedora and it has the guy's name in it, there has to be some truth into what's going on. And if there's already been two kids that are dead because of this guy, supposedly, the last thing you would want to do would be to send your daughter back to sleep. Like, you just went to a fucking sleep clinic with her to figure out what was wrong with her, and she brought a fedora back from the dream world. At this point, as a parent, I think I'd be believing my kid, right?
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah,
no,
at the latest
Nancy,
at this point, obviously.
Nancy, you just go back to sleep, quit drinking coffee, and I'm going to pound another bottle of Malibu rum. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Fucking awful parents. Awful parents. At this point, we get the famous Johnny Depp crop top scene. This is the most outrageous fucking crop top I've ever seen in an 80s film on a guy. Like, this thing is like right below his nipples. You know what I mean? Like, he's wearing this fucking crop top. Yeah. And I want to say that this is where the idea for the crop top came from. I'm not sure when Rocky came out, but I'm pretty sure this film came first. They were like, oh, that's a really unique style idea. I think we'll carry that into film from now on. It looks fucking ridiculous. Anyway, so Nancy calls him and tells him to meet her on her porch at 12 o'clock, right? She says, hey, at 12 o'clock, meet me on my porch because I'm going to need you to come over here. I'm going to bring this guy back out of the dream world, and you're going to beat him up. You're going to fuck him up, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so Johnny Depp's like, yeah, okay, no problem. And what does he do? He immediately puts on his headphones and goes back to sleep in the bed. Like, yeah, bitch, yeah, you and your crazy fucking dreams. You'll go back to sleep. Yeah, I'll be there at 12 o'clock. Yeah.
Then of course he gets killed because because Johnny Depp, of course, he falls asleep, and then Freddy. I'm not sure if we're at this scene already. No, because there's the one scene where Nancy's in the
Oh,
bathroom.
not yet, because he goes to sleep, and then his mom comes in there and kind of wakes him up and has a small, short discussion with him about something. I don't remember. And then Nancy realizes that it's almost 12 o'clock, and she calls the house to get him on the phone, right?
Yep, yeah.
And the mom picks up the phone, and she talks to Nancy, and the dad is there too, by the way, who dad is a total dick, total asshole. He's like, why is that fucking kid calling my house? That kid's crazy. I don't want him hanging out with that crazy girl, blah, 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 blah. And so the mom's like, well, what do you want, honey? Whatever. And she's like, it's personal. I need to talk to your son, blah, blah, blah. And the mom goes, she says it's really personal and she needs to talk to him. And the dad like yanks the phone out of mom's hand and is like, you can't talk to him right now. You can talk to him tomorrow, and hangs up the phone. Right? This guy's a total fucking asshole. Like these kids,
Yeah.
maybe the 80s was different. Maybe people were raised differently. I don't know. But like these two kids, their entire friendship circle is now dead. You know, they've all been murdered. Maybe some friend support would be an okay thing to have at this point. Like,
No, yeah.
let them talk to each other, please. Like, they kind of need this. So he does that, and Johnny Depp doesn't get the call, so Johnny Depp goes back to sleep. And then ends up in a geyser of blood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So,
yeah,
and
yeah, because
this scene is cool.
this scene is actually pretty cool. Because this is where Johnny Depp, where you have like the Freddy hand coming out of the bed, and he starts pulling him down into the bed. No?
Yeah.
And so, like in the middle of it, Johnny Depp wakes up. This is a scene where is kind of similar to the hang up scene, but this is like here it's really unclear: is he awake or not? No, but however, then you have like Johnny Depp being pulled into the bed, and you then have like this, I don't know, literally fountain of blood coming out, where it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous to agree because
it's fucking buckets and buckets of blood.
Buckets. No human has that amount of blood.
No.
I mean,
I feel like this is kind of something that Army of Darkness used later just because of this scene. Like in Army of Darkness, they push the people into the pit with the monster, and then this fucking geyser of blood shoots out of the pit. And it's way too much blood for a human body, right? And I think that was directly taken from this, because this is, if you want to go over the top with blood, this was definitely the scene. Like there's way too much fucking blood.
absolutely.
Like he was just fucking liquefied. Like there's no body left. It's just liquid. And it's so much, in fact, that when his mom realizes he's dead and they call the police and the police come over, you get a look at the ceiling where his bedroom is, and there's like, you would say water damage, but it's blood damage. Like there's blood seeping through the ceiling into the next room. Like they have to put a bucket down to catch this blood that's falling. So Nancy then calls the house, her boyfriend's house, and her dad picks up the phone. And she says to her dad, hey, at this point, she has no fucks left to give, really. Like she doesn't think everybody's going to think she's crazy. She doesn't care. So she tells her dad, look, he's dead, isn't he? Dad's like, yeah, he's dead. And she's like, well, I'm going to catch the guy who did it, and you have to trust me, but I need you to be back over here in 20 minutes. He wants her, or she wants him back over at her house in 20 minutes because she wants to rip him out of the dream world so that dad can arrest him. And even after all this shit that's happened, dad still does not believe her. And he's like, whatever. Yeah, whatever, honey. Yeah, you just go back to sleep. Whatever. And hangs up. And I think she gets it because she starts home aloneing her house now.
Yeah, but didn't we forget the bathtub scene?
Oh yeah, we did forget the bathtub scene, but that was like right after the first death, I want to say.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, which by the way, decent scene, but I mean forgettable, obviously, because we forgot about.
Not much happens. Yeah.
No, not much happens. She gets dragged underneath the water in her bathtub. This is the scene where you usually get like a lot of movie posters have her laying in the bathtub with Freddy's glove kind of coming forward towards her.
Yeah.
I think this is right before she takes the extreme awake pills that we see her take. But yeah, anyway, so she then falls asleep, right? She gets in her bed and she falls asleep, intent on getting Freddy. Like, the whole point of this now is to get Freddy.
Yeah.
So she goes to sleep and then immediately goes down her stairs and then down to the basement, which I don't know how she knows the basement is where the boiler room is going to be in her own house, but whatever. She goes down to the basement, opens the basement door, walks down the stairs, and there's automatically the boiler room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And she goes to the boiler room, starts calling for Freddy. She's looking at her watch on her arm because she set her alarm clock upstairs to go off at a certain time. And she wanted to have Freddy captured before that alarm went off. So Freddy's not showing up. She's pissed off. She's screaming for him. She's calling him names. He's not showing up. And then kind of in the last split second before the alarm clock goes off, he grabs her. She grabs him. The alarm clock goes off and she wakes up in her bed and Freddy's not there.
Yeah. Funny thing is, matter of fact, you know which ferret is now on my arm? Freddy. That's the funny thing.
Classic.
This ferret,
you know why? It's probably
Freddy the
it's
ferret.
probably because we've been saying his fucking name this whole time. It's probably because we've been saying his name the whole fucking time. He's like, they've said my name like 80 times. They must want me to come into the room.
That's probably why he's here now.
That's fucking funny, dude.
Yeah.
That poor ferret is like, man, his ears were burning, dude. He was like, those motherfuckers are talking bad about me in that other room, dude. I gotta go see what's up.
What the fuck are these assholes saying about me? I can't.
This scene, right? So she's supposed to be grabbing him out of the dream world and bringing him into the real world. She wakes up in the bed. He's not there. And she's like, fuck, it didn't work. And then all of a sudden, Freddy jumps up from the other side of her bed and jumps on top of her, right?
Yeah.
So they're wrestling a little bit. Freddy Krueger is probably the weakest motherfucker I've ever seen in horror movie history because this is not a big girl. You know what I mean? This is a tiny 16-year-old girl who's not super strong. Size. Yeah. So she throws him around for a little while, right? And by the way, at this point, she's already rigged her room with a sledgehammer that is over the closet door that's rigged to come down if the closet door is open. So this little, 108-pound girl takes this grown supernatural creature and stuffs him into a closet. Like, whatever, dude. Okay. All right. So she stuffs him in the closet and then rigs the closet door to where if he tries to get out and opens it back up, the sledgehammer is going to come down and hit him, right?
Yeah.
So he's in there. She runs downstairs to try to get her mom's attention and tries to go out the door to get her dad because her dad is not there yet like she told him to be.
Yeah, but all the windows have been barred by her.
Yeah, all the windows have been barred, which, by the way, I'm not sure when that happened because that happened over the span of maybe 2 hours in the film. And I don't think her drunk mom could have done all that by herself.
No.
Yeah. All the windows are barred. She can't get out of the door. She looks over at the couch and her mom's laying on the couch drunk. Shit.
Drunk as fuck, dude.
She's totally lushed out on the couch and she's like, no, I don't lock them doors. Them doors are locked. You're not getting out. She's like, Mom, you don't understand. I got this guy in the bedroom. I'm trying to go get Dad. She's like, no, I'm not opening the door. Nancy's frustrated, right? She can't get out of the house. At this point, Freddy kicks open the closet door and immediately gets the fucking sledgehammer right in the chest. This dude, he's a supernatural monster, right? So not only is he weak as fuck, but he can't take damage very well. Because the dude gets it right in the middle of the chest and gets the fucking shit knocked out of him. Like, he can't walk right after this. He's having problems getting around the house. So he gets hit in the chest. He limps down the stairs. Doesn't come down the stairs very well. He's hurt bad, right? And sees that Nancy is in the living room. So he runs after her and immediately trips a cable that she had set up, like a tripwire, which makes a light bulb that she'd set up with gunpowder behind him explode. Right? So the light bulb explodes. Freddy falls on the ground and she runs back down to the boiler room. right? So when she runs back down to the boiler room, he follows her, limping the whole fucking way, and also a little bit burned now because the thing blew up behind him. By the way, the fucking light bulb blows up. Have you ever seen that bomb made before, or that actually work?
No.
Okay,
No.
so that's not a quiet explosion. It's pretty fucking loud and pretty fucking big. And
when the light bulb bursts, yeah.
right across the street are all these police out in the front yard, but they didn't hear this fucking explosion in the house. Yeah, whatever. So she goes down to the boiler room. Freddy chases her down there. She douses him in gasoline and then lights him on fire. Right?
Yeah.
So now Freddy is on fire. She runs back upstairs. He's just a big ball of flames, screaming like crazy, not able to walk. I think he tumbles back up and down the stairs a few times before he even gets upstairs.
Yeah.
When he finally does get upstairs, I think she has already gotten out of the door and gone to grab her dad from across the street. So she grabs her dad, comes back to the house. She thinks Freddy is still downstairs burning, but he's actually gone back through the house and back up the stairs to where her mom is.
Yeah, because this is actually the thing. This is the thing. I'm not sure if Nancy... No. Nancy didn't run out the house and grab her dad. The thing is, she's screaming all the time, banging out the window. And the dad notices there's something wrong because he sees smoke coming out of the house. Then he grabs the cops and says, oh shit, we have to go in there. No? Then they go into their house and they see like fire everywhere in the cellar or whatever. Then they see footsteps, burning footsteps that go from the cellar up to the hallway, up through the stairs or whatever. No? Now this is the
house is basically on fire. Yeah.
The house is basically on fire. This is the dumbest part in the entire movie. Now ever. Thing is, because Freddy's on fire or whatever, or panicking or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Now that he walks up to the room because the mom is now sleeping up in the bedroom. So that means throughout everything that just happened, that you just explained, Matt, the mom somehow woke up and saw Freddy and Nancy running through the house, fighting or whatever, and was like, oh, no, I'm gonna go to bed now. Fuck this shit. No, it's never really shown, but for some reason, the mom is now laying in the bed. So Freddy goes up to the mom because the mom is sleeping. Apparently, he needs somebody that's asleep to return back to the dream room.
Right.
Because apparently that'll heal him or whatever, obviously, because he's a dream demon or whatever. And then you have, like, at the time, you have Nancy and her dad coming up, no? It seemed like Nancy's mom just sing into this bed, and the bed now turns into some neon color light.
Yeah, this was not well thought out, dude.
Yeah,
this was not well thought out at all.
And then the mom is just gone. Nobody's trying, apparently, that the mom, that Freddy killed the mom just...
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. That's what bothers me. Like, one, she was downstairs, drunk as fuck. Now she's upstairs in the bed. Freddy goes up there and jumps on her, on fire.
Yeah. And nothing's burning. Nothing's burning, by the way. Yeah. I mean, if this was in the dream realm where Freddy had his powers, it would make sense because Freddy is kind of all powerful when he's in the dream world. But when he's in the real world, he becomes a normal mortal being. No?
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And then just this scene where he kills the mom, it's just like the mom just disappears she becomes one with the bed. It's not like she's...
Yeah. Well, not only that, but...
Yeah, she becomes one with everything. Yeah.
It made no sense. Did they pull the sheets away from her because they throw sheets on top of Freddy because he's on fire, right?
Yeah.
And he's on top of the mom. And then when they pull the sheets back, she's just kind of a skeleton. Like a half-burnt skeleton corpse.
Yeah.
And her hand kind of comes up and does this and waves goodbye. And then she sinks into the bed. And the bed's like a bed of light. And it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And I can't help but think that this was like a production thing where they ran out of time or money.
Just at this point, it's just like it. And also at this point, it no longer feels like a hippie thing. It feels like some spiritual journey hippie shit. Like she's becoming one with everything.
Yeah. Dumb as fuck. Dumb as fuck. And so when mom disappears into the bed,
right behind the end.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden, Nancy is standing there watching all of this shit, doing literally nothing. I mean, your mom's getting, your mom is becoming one with the universe. I mean, or whatever. Freddy's killing her, whatever, and she's just standing there like, this is interesting. Interesting. And then all of a sudden, then the dad comes run, is totally shocked by what happens, because this is shocking now. The least brutal thing that has ever happened in this movie, and the dad's totally fucking shocked now. I mean, you can make several arguments about this. Multiple kids being killed. He's like, no, whatever. Now his ex-wife gets killed. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, that's what I didn't understand. Was he shocked to the point to where he was speechless, or did he not care? Because all he does is look at what happened and go, and then walks out of the room. Like that's the only reaction we get from this guy at all.
Yeah, exactly. He walks out of the room like nothing happens. Like it's like, yeah, well, this is fine.
Totally makes no sense. No sense whatsoever.
Okay, then all of a sudden, the dad is gone. Then Nancy somehow turns around, and then Freddy comes back. No, this scene makes sense because now Freddy's back in the real dream world or whatever. No. So, but then Freddy comes up and, I don't know, wants to do something, I don't know. No? And
I've lost any sense of anything that makes any sense in this film is now gone. Like the film is
absolutely. At this movie, the movie is totally pointless because Freddy is up behind Nancy, and Nancy gives some speech like,
she turns her back to him and she says, "You're not real. This is just a dream. And I'm taking all of the power back from you.
You're not real.
I gave you."
And then Freddy leaps out behind her that then just disappears.
Yeah, into TV static, by the way.
Yeah, TV static, exactly.
TV static. That's how Freddy disappears, TV static.
Then Nancy walks out the door, and all of a sudden she's outside, because clearly she's dreaming at this point, because either way, nothing makes sense. Then all of a sudden, she walks out the door, it's light as day, and she's like, oh, what a nice morning. Then her mom comes out. And you're like, what the fuck? What? And her mom comes out like, oh my God, it's nice weather today. I know it's a dream. It's a movie that switches between reality and dreams. But even at that point, it's like, after you have that scene set up, the mom coming out like nothing has happened is like,
at this point, I was sure in the film that we didn't know anymore what was going on. Nothing gets resolved. We don't know the answer to what really happened here at all. Like this whole thing from the time that she pulled Freddy back into the real world, did she really? Because
that's a thing.
Nothing's explained.
Yeah.
Nothing is explained. All of that stuff that happened could have happened in a dream world and we would never know it, because the next scene, like you said, is her walking outside and all of a sudden her mom is alive and her mom's like, oh, beautiful day. Oh, I'm so glad that everything's okay. And by the way, I can't remember anything that happened last night. Geez, I must have drank a lot.
Yeah.
And then everyone who died in the movie drives up in Johnny Depp's car with Johnny Depp in front of the house to pick her up for school. So in my mind, at this point, as the viewer, if I didn't, and even now that I do know everything about Freddy Krueger from the other films, this still makes no sense. So I don't know if this is a dream. I don't know if it's real. I'm assuming it's a dream, whatever. They all pull up in his Cadillac and the roof of the Cadillac comes down, right? Well, the roof of the Cadillac is colored like Freddy's sweater.
Exactly.
So that's your hint right there. Okay, this is a dream, right? And she gets in the car, and the car top closes, and they're all trapped inside the car, and the car drives itself away with a bunch of screaming teenagers in it. And then Freddy's arm comes out of the front door and grabs her mom by the shirt and rips her right back through the door hole, right? And that's the end of the movie.
And by the way, you can see that it's a doll.
Yeah, it's obviously a doll. These were not good effects. I mean, it was meant to be done quickly to where you didn't realize it was a doll, but it's obviously a doll.
Yeah, I mean, I think back in the day, people didn't really realize it that much. I guess.
Maybe not. I mean, we're watching everything in 4K now, so you can see a
Yeah,
lot more. Like you can see a lot more of the movie tricks that were probably obscured at that time because the quality of the film was not that good, right? So maybe at that time you would have not been able to see how bad the effects were, but this is a bad effect. And still, this is the end of the movie, and I have no idea what happened.
absolutely. No,
No.
no resolution. Whatever. What was wrong? I mean, the thing is,
Don't know anything.
I mean, you only can assume that because Nancy returns in the later Elm Street films. Huh?
Yeah,
So
she's in two and three, and then she appears later in I want to
Freddy's new,
say
Freddy's
yeah,
new
what
nightmare.
Freddy's new
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Craven's new nightmare.
Yeah, Wes Craven. So apparently somehow everything after Johnny Depp dies apparently happens. Must be dream shit or whatever. Because either than that, it makes no sense.
I got nothing, bro. Like after this ending, and I don't know why I didn't catch this when I was a kid. Maybe I wasn't paying so much attention, but the movie itself loses all coherency after that last dream sequence. Like when
Yeah.
she falls asleep to go get Freddy, nothing after that makes any sense. You don't know if it happened. You don't know if it was real world or dream, all the way up to the end of the movie. And that right there is a huge mistake. Like, I don't know how this film got the praise it got. Like, if this is a film that started a franchise that spawned all of these other sequels and actually supported an entire film company to become what it is now, what a fucking dreadful ending. And how did that happen? I'm confused. I'm perplexed. I was literally angry when the film ended.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say angry. It was just like at this point, it was for me already. I already turned my brain off, and it was like, yeah, what's happening is happening because whatever. I wouldn't say that it was angry. And the thing is, for me, it's clearly a case of writing and editing because the thing was everything that happened that is coherent would have been okay if it was explained in the sequels in one of the other Nightmare movies because you just have that thing. It's always every Nightmare Freddy Krueger movie is a switch between reality and dream world. No? And pretty much everybody can
Yeah.
relate to this because everybody has dreams and knows how much fucking nonsensical they are sometimes. No? So if it was explained in the movie itself or in later sequels why everything after this point makes no sense, it would be okay because dream world, whatever, is something got totally mixed up, but it's never explained. What I think is that when the movie was made, the climax of the movie was supposed to be like literally fluently real world and dream world mixing up totally so that it makes no sense. I think that was actually the point, no? But they just totally fucked up in explaining it anyway.
Yeah.
Duh. And to be honest, this part alone, duh, I have to say, the remake done 100 times better. Because in the remake of Freddy Krueger,
Yeah.
Matt, this makes total sense. I mean, the thing is, the problem with the remake, why I understand, is that they turned Freddy Krueger into a child abuser. No? It doesn't really bother me because I see child murderers and child abusers as the same thing. Both, in my opinion, are equally evil as shit. No? So, but this part alone, the remake, done 100 times better because in the remake, it clearly makes sense. Because in the remake, even though it's not said how the shots and the scenes are all filmed, it gets mixed up into what is real and what is reality. But in the remake, as you see, there's a scene where all of a sudden they close, I think, the door, whatever, and they see Freddy in the mirror, no? And I think Freddy, and that scene, okay, that scene alone, he says, okay, now it's a dream. Then Freddy pulls, I'm not sure if it's Nancy or her mom who pulls into the mirror, but whatever. This scene alone, the remake does 100 times better than the original. Because in the original, it's just like, as you said, nothing makes sense, and nothing is explained ever again.
Yeah.
Neither in any of the sequels. Just somehow in part 3, 4, and in Freddy's New Nightmare, Nancy is back again.
How?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think you can chalk this up to budget, editing, and then not knowing how to end a movie. And a lot of it's kind of like the Alien 3 story, right? Like, you had a great idea for a film and you had it laid out, and the studio interfered a little bit and said, hey, change this and change this. And I think with films, you tend to get kind of the delusions of grandeur about how a film is going to turn out and how it's going to be received. And then you run out of time and you run out of budget and you're like, fuck, there's a lot of things that I would like to fix here. There's a lot of things that don't make any sense in the final edit, but there's no money left and there's no time left. So you just put the film out. And for whatever reason, this film, even though it made no sense, this was still an idea that had not been done, and it was fresh enough.
Yeah.
It got people interested and people liked it. So it's kind of one of those where they were like, well, fuck the story. I mean, I don't really care. Maybe it'll be explained in the sequel why, what happened. But people really like the film. Like, it's got, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes or you go to any of the other like film sites that rate films, this one's rated pretty high. And going back and watching it now, I can't see why. I cannot see why.
Well,
not a good film.
The thing is, you have to see this way. The thing is, A Nightmare on Elm Street, it started the franchise. Just like, as you said, back in the day, it was like, I would say nobody really cared that much because you have entirely, the concept is this mixture between dream and reality. So at the time, I personally don't think a lot of people cared. And nowadays, a lot of people, it's nostalgia. Why they walk at it and they watch the movie and it's like, yeah, it's so great or whatever. And I do think if it's people that watch the movie, if it's professional critics or whatever, why I think it's a good movie. I'm not saying it's a bad one. I like it, even though the climax is totally nonsensical. What I just personally think is that I think a lot of people give this credit due because it started everything. It started this franchise. That's what I personally think. No? And this franchise alone, A Nightmare on Elm Street, is very influential to the horror movies as a general, because
absolutely no argument there.
Yeah, because
no argument there at all.
That's like spiritual shit. I mean, horror movie. That's spiritual stuff, or something that has some non-reality shit in it, not like some other dimension. You can always see a certain fraction of Nightmare on Elm Street in it. Yeah,
you can. You definitely can.
That's personally what I just think why so much people give the original Nightmare on Elm Street such a good high rating, even though, for, let's say, specifically the climax objectively sucks. Good analogy. Just like a good analogy that has nothing to do with horror movies, video games. No?
Mm-hmm.
The first The Legend of Zelda game, everybody praises as, I don't know, whatever. No? Like, so awesome. I mean, I'm a major hardcore Zelda fan, but the first game sucks. It sucks ass, but it was one of the first open world fantasy games that ever came out, and this game alone started the Legend of Zelda franchise, and for that reason, you have so much people that are saying, like, this game is super awesome, no? Even though objectively it sucks, no? And this is a similar thing you have going on with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Objectively, the first movie, it sucks. It just sucks. I mean, even though I like it, it just, the thing is, I'm the type of guy, I really like movies that suck. Maybe that's the reason why I like it. But objectively, it sucks. But because it started this amazing franchise that every horror fan is a fan of, me, myself, everybody is like, this is amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get your reasoning. I do. This started this journey into this kind of horror movie making, and that's why it's got its name cemented as one of the best horror films. And that's why everybody knows it. Objectively, it is terrible. But here's the thing, Mike. Every fucking Nightmare on Elm Street movie after this one is worse somehow.
True.
It's not good. It's not good. I mean, like, if you do something new and fresh, which I'm going to give Nightmare on Elm Street its credit, it is fresh. The idea is fresh. It's extremely interesting. It's interesting to have a dream demon who attacks people and kills them in their sleep. One, because that idea is inherent in so many cultures. Not just Western culture. It's everywhere. The sleep demon, the idea of the sleep demon.
I mean, the Western one is the succubus and incubus.
Yeah,
of course.
It's been written about for centuries.
Yeah,
you know, and so it has roots in our culture and it has roots in other cultures around the world. And for that reason alone, it's interesting and it's fresh. And I got to give credit where it's due to Wes Craven for using it, but the execution was dreadful, absolutely fucking dreadful, and it does not get better with every film. It gets worse.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I'm probably going to get a lot of fucking hate for this. But this is where you can tie it. You can make a comparison to Sharknado. Because the same thing is with the Sharknado franchise. It gets worse movie for movie.
But those movies are supposed to be terrible, man.
I know.
Those movies are supposed that's like saying you don't go into The Toxic Avenger expecting that to be a good film. You go into it expecting it to be a terrible film.
Yeah.
And because it was terrible with the idea of knowing that it was supposed to be terrible, it's a famous film because you can laugh about it all day long. And those films are extremely hard to tear down because you can sit there and laugh about a film and say how horrible it is. But that doesn't matter if the film is actually meant to be terrible, right? This film was meant to not be terrible, and it's fucking terrible. I mean, I'll give credit where credit's due. Like Robert Englund, I cannot see anybody else's Freddy.
Exactly.
I can't. And maybe that's another reason I didn't like the remake, because for me, Robert Englund brings Freddy into Freddy. Like, he is Freddy.
Yeah,
and so if anybody else does it, it doesn't have the same ring to me. Whereas, you know, like Jason, you can put anybody behind that mask and it's still Jason. But Freddy is Robert Englund.
Yeah.
He brings a certain amount of swagger to that character, which in this film, you really didn't get a whole lot of the swagger. You kind of just got the creepy dream demon who laughs a lot, whatever. But his character builds throughout the films, and even though those films get progressively worse than the first film, the character stands out. And I think as the films progressed, people started to understand who Freddy was and things that Freddy would do, things that Freddy wouldn't do. And I think because of that, it's more of a character-driven franchise. Like, everybody comes back not for the story, obviously, because the story sucks, but they come back for the character. Because Freddy, arguably, in every film is funny. Yeah. All right, folks, we are back from our piss break.
Our piss break. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just really, I couldn't hold it anymore.
Mike has a pee bladder.
Yeah, I have a pee bladder.
About this
big. Well, the thing is, not necessarily, I have drank like 2 or 3 beers over this entire thing, so of course you have to piss. No? And the entire time I have my ferret, Freddy.
Yeah.
He's here all the time because, of course, he hears his name. He's been hearing his name like multiple times the last 2 hours. So he's here. He is all the time. He's following me about everywhere because Freddy all the time.
He's like, wow, this is the best day of my ferret life. All right, dude. You got anything else you want to say about this terrible film before we cut this off? Like, I feel like
no, just
we've
that.
Kind of given this film. We've given this film all the credit we can give it. I stand on my final rating that the movie is probably a school grade, probably a C. For nostalgia, for nostalgia's, I'll give it a B. How's that? Is that fair?
I think a C is pretty fair.
Okay.
I mean, the point is, if you look at it objectively, I would say I like Wes Craven's movies, and I love Freddy Krueger, the character itself. I mean, obviously, one of my favorites is named Mr. Freddy Krueger. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I really did think, because one of my favorites is named after Freddy Krueger, that through this podcast, my favorite movie fucking kind of got.
Of course. I mean, if you called my name from another room multiple times, I'm going to come in to see what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But,
I mean, okay.
yeah,
Okay,
well, the thing is,
will we... No, go ahead.
I would say I would give it definitely a C, because the fact is, this movie started a franchise that just became super influential to the entire horror scene. For that reason, you have to give the movie credit.
I mean, giving it credit is one thing, but I think any movie worth its salt, and keep in mind, we are talking about horror films. Horror films, they tend to follow continuity a lot less than any other genre. Like,
Yeah.
continuity in horror films is awful. And even in some of the best series of horror films, like The Evil Dead is notorious for this, the continuity is tragically bad.
Yeah.
It's tragically bad.
But you also have to say Evil Dead was a movie where nobody really gave a shit. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's just it. I mean, we're gonna do Evil Dead later, so I don't want to get into it too much, but there's a reason why the continuity in those films is the way that it is. And for the longest time before the series came out, it was unexplained and just kind of accepted that the continuity was bad. But thankfully, the writers came back with a series that followed up the movies and explained canonically why the continuity was so terrible. Like, that never happens with Freddy Krueger. And when you're talking about films, it's a good idea, at least from my opinion, from my foxhole. If you're watching a film and you're talking about this movie by itself in its own little bubble, you should kind of rate it as that movie alone, as a standalone, right? And if you did that with all of the Freddy Krueger movies, inherently they're all terrible, right? Evil Dead, you can kind of take each movie as a standalone, and each one of them you can say that movie was fucking amazing. Like, in my opinion, right? It's just my opinion. But rating this movie as the first movie to where you didn't know if it was going to get a sequel, because every movie that comes out horror-wise, they never do it. Well, maybe they do sometimes, but they never do it with the intent to do a sequel. So depending on how the first one is received, that's how likely you are to get sequels. And this movie, the way that it was, other than the fact that it was a fresh idea and a new take on horror and the genre, I don't get why it got sequels. I don't get it. Whatever.
I think watching it specifically in 2025, a lot of people don't get it. The thing is, what I would actually enjoy would be a remake. I mean, like an entirely reboot of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
I personally think if they wouldn't have turned Freddy Krueger into a child abuser, the movie would have been received entirely differently. Because I'm going to be honest.
I think you're right.
If you remove that alone from the entire movie, it's really good. I mean, I liked Freddy in that movie. What I specifically liked about the remake is that Freddy was no longer this joke character.
Yeah.
That he could only...
He was evil. Yeah.
He was fucking evil. That is what I liked about the remake. The other thing is, I pretty much just blended out the entire he's a child abuser thing, because I also didn't start to realize it until other people brought it up. But other than that, the remake is not a bad movie. It's not, objectively spoken.
I think the reason people didn't like it is, one, the same reason I didn't like it, which we've already beat to death ad nauseum. But the other thing is, if you go into that movie knowing who Freddy is and knowing how the character is and expecting that character, you didn't get that. And that's why people hated it. Because people objectively like Freddy Krueger because he is a certain character type. He is a funny, ridiculous, maniacal, evil horror character, and the remake did not do that at all.
That's
and
true.
So that's why people hated it. Film-wise, if you didn't know anything about Freddy Krueger and you just watched that movie, it's probably a great film.
It is, yeah.
It's probably a great film. It's just that you can't get it out of your head that you're watching a movie about a character that you already know, and that's what ruins it. I mean, but the same could be said for the Friday the 13th remake. Like, there were some things that were changed about that film to better suit a modern audience, and they didn't change the character very much, and the film was filmed very well. Like, cinematography was great, acting was great, it was extremely creepy, but it was not a good film. People
the thing is with the Friday the 13th remake is they just mixed up, they mixed up too much things in one. The thing is, the entire Friday the 13th is an entirely different thing. You have, like, in the first 3 movies, for example, it is up until the climax of the movie, not necessarily clear who the murderer is. No? And in the remake, they mixed those things up entirely. What kind of like was like, okay, yeah. I also felt with the remake, like, the biggest selling point is that Sam Winchester is in it. You know?
Yeah. I'll give you that. Yeah. I mean, that's one of those movies. That's one of those movies I would love to do.
We could do it. I mean, I think we should just for the namesake. No, we should do Nightmare on Elm Street remake and Friday the 13th remake. And of course, I mean, I think eventually we're probably going to do all the Elm Street movies and all of the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah, of course.
Because you have to. I mean, as horror fans,
you have to. You got to cover the classics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm totally cool with that. I mean, I'm not really sure there's a whole lot of movies I wouldn't do. Honestly, with this podcast, like I said, horror movies, there's so much that people love that if you stuck to the movies and just the movies that people love as horror fans, you'd never run out of material, ever.
Of course.
Never. There's so much. And then bad horror films that everybody hates, same thing.
Yeah.
Same thing. And some movies are fun to do because you can objectively tear them apart, kind of like we did Werewolves for the first episode. And then
I mean,
some films
we were destroyed
that film. Destroyed that film. And I think I don't feel like we really destroyed this film enough. I think we gave this one a little bit more credit than I planned on giving it. But truth be told, when it all comes down to the end and all the chips are on the table, what ruined this movie was the ending.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else was fun. I had no issue with it. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to make fun of. It was just this notoriously bad ending. But anyway, you got any final thoughts on this film before we cut it off?
No, not really. No, it's like, no, just it made no fucking sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it didn't. Not at all. We'll do the other Freddy films too.
Yeah.
As time goes on. Do you know what film you want to do next time?
I think the next one we should do is Alien Romulus. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the thing we should. I mean, what I would also like to do. I mean, there are so much movies. The Dawn of the Dead. You know, because I'm also like the 3 creature types I like the most is werewolves, vampires, and zombies. I mean, obviously, I'm also I work as a zombie actor at Frankenstein Castle.
You don't say.
What? You don't say. I mean, pretty much everybody that knows me is that I'm also a major zombie fan, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, to the point I watched so much zombie movies that for a very long time I lost interest in them. But it's entirely different thing because I also work as an actor at Frankenstein Castle, and when I started there, I watched pretty much everything I could grasp on zombies because it was my role to play a zombie at Frankenstein Castle.
Yeah.
To the point
Go ahead.
Yeah. To the point where when I started to work as an actor at Frankenstein Castle, I mean, like the first 2 or 3 years when I worked there, I didn't watch any zombie movies, shows, or whatever, just because I watched so much of it, to prepare myself for the role I play at Halloween, that I just couldn't see it anymore.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
I get it. I get it. Well, it's kind of like me for those. I don't think we've ever mentioned it on the podcast, right? But
No.
for those of you who don't know us personally, on our band Texas Cornflake Massacre, on stage we're zombies, right?
Yeah.
And then also Mike and I both work at the actual Frankenstein Castle here in Germany for their yearly 3-week-long horror festival, and we're characters. He's a zombie and I'm this guy.
Yeah, Jason.
It's a role of a lifetime. It's fun because you actually get to embody the character, and it's a full contact haunted house, one of the only ones in the world. So like, if you don't know about that and you're ever in Germany, it might be worth checking it out. It's no longer at the Frankenstein Castle, though, because the Frankenstein Castle is under rebuilding permit right now. They're rebuilding the grounds.
Yeah.
So it's moved to Königstein Castle, which is not that far away, which is also a castle that's the same size. But they just installed the entire festival at that castle until Frankenstein is up and running again. But it's the same thing. Biggest horror festival in the world, also
In Europe,
the longest running. I think we're
actually longest running.
48 now, 48 years.
Pretty much around that, 48 years. It was actually one of
48?
the first. It was actually one of the first Halloween festivals in Europe.
It was started by Americans.
Exactly. Started by Americans. Exactly.
Started by Americans.
Yeah.
So if you guys get a chance and you're in Germany and want to come check that out, check it out. If you're interested in getting tickets because you're going to be here or whatever, let us know and we'll put the ticket link on our Facebook page and whatever else. They're not paying us to say that. We just really love doing that job. It's fucking great.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got nothing else, Mike. Are you good?
Me neither. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. Check us out next week. We're going to do Alien Romulus.
Exactly.
And we're going to destroy that film because it fucking sucked. Anyway,
Romulus.
I'm Matt. See you later.
See you.